Hello, welcome back to the Bald Book Geek. This is a video that I did not plan on shooting, but I want to, because, oh boy. So a person, she went on a rampage on Twitter, calling genre fiction, science fiction and so on, fascist. And when you have well-known writers tweeting about it, you know a lot has happened. So I'm going to review her book. Oh, things I do for you people. I used my Kindle. I paid for it with my own money. I read it over the weekend. I read it fast. Really, really, really fast. Like, it's so easy to read and not in a good way. So let's start. Story features your generic YA Bella Swan type girl or wind-up creature who describes how she looks in intimate detail. Every character is described in intimate detail, i.e. My Immortal. And if you've not read My Immortal, please read My Immortal. This is actually, My Immortal is far more interesting and far better than this. Where do we start? The storyline is your basic love story, and although she calls genre fiction fascist, she writes genre fiction. This is magical realism, or as she calls herself, a magical realist. I think she's a little confused. She's also a communist, a homophobe, and many other things. Like, it's frightening. Like, she is a communist to the extreme. Like, an extremist communist. Her Twitter alone. I mean, she blocked everyone, but, I mean, her Twitter alone, from what I did see, was hilarious. So let's go back to this book and let's start the cringe fest. Let's pick out things that I like I do in every review. That was a little bit more difficult with this. I liked the concept. I actually thought the concept was interesting. So the characters, let's break down these characters. The characters are very one-dimensional. There's no layers to them. There's no subtext. There's no reason for them. Like, that's the dialogue in this book. That's another issue. The dialogue is really static, and all of the characters just don't work. Also, strange names, and some of them sound like they've been ripped from well-known anime and mangas, because I got the feeling that's all she reads. That and communist propaganda. The writing, I'm so sorry about that. I feel bad, but I just wanted to talk about this book because I'm crying over here because I read it. And this is like, I finished reading it 10 minutes ago and I've been processing my thoughts, hence the bad lighting and me looking terrible and this thing on my forehead. So the writing style is bizarre. There are errors here and there. I'm shocked that there is no... I nosed through her tweets and she mentioned having an editor, but if this thing's been edited by a professional editor, I would be really shocked. It has problems. So one of the major problems is sentence structure. It's overwritten, but it doesn't say very much. Like, there's endless descriptions of things and moments, and she talks about not being pretty and how and actually she's your typical YA protagonist in that sense. Oh, I'm just, my flaw is just that I'm clumsy or something. And that really drove me insane. Like, Bella Swan has more personality than anyone in this book. What I never got with it was, like, on a technical level, the structure is weird. Like, there's no key moments, there's no key points that pull out and go this and that and this and that. It's flat. She also gets her tenses mixed up, like past and present tense is mixed up occasionally throughout this book, and that really is jarring when you read, because when you switch tense, especially mid-conversation, what few conversations there are, kind of has a problem. This writer also has an issue with villains, like apparently they're all coded and propaganda and communist and so on, and fascist. That shows, like, that there is nothing in this book that makes you go, I wanted to read this. There's nothing in this book that does that. But also word repetition. I think there's places where the words are repeated throughout a sentence, and I don't mean like normal conversation words, because the conversation is written in such a stunted and flat and uninteresting way. It just doesn't flow. The storyline is generic. It's your typical, it's like YA with some sex. It feels like a first draft. That's the word for it. It's like a first draft. Like, sometimes you get, like, a friend will bring me their first draft, and I'm like, okay, no, this is really good, and my first drafts are usually terrible. Like, there's stuff in there, but I read them back and I want to cringe. Like, a first draft is a first draft. You don't publish your first draft, and this, according to her Twitter, she wrote this. But this was not ready to be published. This was not finished. I get the feeling they're very young, which also brings us to sin number 2, that cover. The cover of this book reminds me of something that you would see on DeviantArt, created by a 14-year-old in 2005. I'm waiting for, like, My Chemical Romance to start playing whenever I look at it. Like, I know that's not a big thing, but this cover, nothing to do with the book, and it's so amateurish. And Publishing 101, a good cover. If you don't know what you're doing, you get a friend to do it. You know, my background is graphics design. I've done book covers for people, including some bestsellers. I think I work hard on them. I could do a better cover than that. I don't know. This book was just bad. Like, I've read bad books like Morgan Rice. She's a bad writer, but at least, you know what? At least Morgan Rice is fun. For all the flaws, like, that's done. That I just come out of reading her book and thinking, for all the big things and all the big statements on Twitter, it just read like a child's work. Read what you write, and obviously she doesn't read much, so yeah, it's not a good book. It's a 0 out of 5. Don't waste your money. I did. Stupid mistake. But I wanted to see if there was something redeemable and good after all the Twitter drama. So, anyway, bye guys.